Hi, I'm Francis Mackey with Amorgis and Associates. I'm the head of the personal injury department. I'm back today after our big premiere last week of a Facebook Live video to explain how a contingency fee works in a personal injury case, i.e., how do I get paid? I remember as a kid, my grandfather used to tell me the answer to 99 out of 100 questions was money. And obviously, we have to get paid for our services, but the way we do it is on what's called a contingency fee-based payment schedule in a personal injury case. So how does that work? You've seen the ads. You've seen the ads if you own a television or you have a radio, or you hear, if we don't get paid, you don't get paid. Or if you don't get paid, we don't get paid, the other way around. We've also heard no recovery, no fee. What does that mean, essentially? That doesn't really tell you how the process works. It just tells you that if you don't get anything, the attorney doesn't get anything, which if you don't get anything, I don't really think you're too concerned if the attorney did. However, let me explain how this process works so you have an understanding. So if you ever should be in this situation, you have an idea of how a contingency fee works. Usually, when you hire an attorney, they require what's called a retainer, or money up front. If you want an attorney to draft a will, or to file papers for a corporation, or to draw up any sort of legal agreement or contract. Generally speaking, you pay the attorney an amount of money for an hourly basis. Say the attorney charges $250 an hour, you give the attorney $5,000 to do the work. When the $5,000 is gone, you have to give the attorney more money. Otherwise, you don't get any work. Okay, so with personal injury cases, it's a little bit different because we're allowed to work on what's called a contingency fee basis. And what that means is I get paid a percentage of what we recover. If we don't recover anything, that's what I said before, you don't owe me anything. So let me explain. Just percentage basis. Let's say my contingency fee is 25%. If we settled the case, or we took the case to trial and we got $10,000, my fee would be $2,500. Now, conversely, if something went wrong and the case didn't recover anything, the case got denied, or there was no value to the case, or etc., hundreds, thousands ways it could go wrong, at that point, the recovery would be zero. And 25% of zero is still zero. So why do we do a contingency fee basis? Why don't we ask clients, hey, we'll represent you on this injury, just pay us up front? Because let's be realistic, a lot of people don't plan to be in automobile accidents. Actually, nobody plans to be in an automobile accident. So it's not exactly a legal issue that you're contemplating having. If you know you need a will, you can save the money, pay the attorney, and be done with it. You don't consider going out on the road on a Wednesday afternoon, getting hit from behind. You're not planning to be in any sort of automobile accident. So it's not as though you have this secret pile of money under your bed to go hire an attorney. So a personal injury attorney is allowed to represent you on a percentage or a contingency fee basis. And so what that means is once you contact me and say, hey, Attorney Mackey, I'd like you to represent me on this claim. You don't pay me anything at that point. I don't ask you for a certain amount of money. I don't say, hey, listen, you come in with $1,000 and I'll get started on your case. I don't say that. You sign the contingency fee agreement and I start working on the case. So in short, I'm taking a risk just like you're taking a risk. I've still got to pay my staff. I still have to do the investigation. I do all the work up front without getting paid. We do the initial insurance investigation. We find the coverage. We find if there's uninsured coverage, if there's liability coverage, if there's third-party coverage, if there's medical insurance. If so, how much did that medical insurance pay? We get the medical bills. We get the medical records. We follow up with the medical providers. We may get a report from the medical providers that we front the money for. That's handled in cost, which is a little bit different part of the equation. However, we go on, we negotiate the case with the insurance company. We may settle the case. However, in the event we don't settle the case and we litigate the case, we do all of that without getting paid. When there's a final settlement or a final verdict, then that's when we get paid as an attorney working on a contingency fee basis. So whatever the final verdict is or the final settlement amount is, long after the accident. I mean, it's entirely possible the accident happens today, October 24th, 2017, and doesn't get resolved until sometime in 2020. We would have to wait until that time to get paid. Unfortunately, so would you, but we would all be in the same boat. Because of that fact, where I don't get paid or my office doesn't get paid unless and until we recover, we have to be conscious in the kind of the cases that we take on. A lot of times, clients will call me and they'll say, hey, listen, do I have a case? And I'll be straightforward with them. Out of a number of calls to my office, I can't accept the majority of the cases because of one reason or another. There's adverse liability, or there's not coverage of the injuries, etc. But the cases we do select to take on, we have a pretty good feeling there's going to be a degree of recovery. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, since the 20th century. My attorney and my staff have been doing this for a long time as well. And although nobody can accurately handicap the value of a case or how long it's going to take, we look at basic things. Is there negligence on the other party? Are there injuries? Is there insurance to recover? If there are those things, we have a pretty good idea that we're going to recover. The question is, what are the nature and extent of the injuries? What are the nature and extent of the treatment? That's the process of the case that we have to work through before we can work on settlement or negotiations. So we take the risk with you. We jump in the boat with you. We do all the work before we get paid. Now, that's why it's a good indicator if we take on your case that there's value in the case, or at least we have the opinion there's value in the case. Of course, if any attorney guarantees an outcome and guarantees a verdict amount, take a deep breath and leave, because nobody can predict the future or outcome accurately. So there are only a limited amount of places in the world that you can use a contingency fee. That's why you got to remember, if you're involved in a personal injury claim, you're involved in an accident, there's no money up front. People call me, they say, I can't afford to hire an attorney. I have to tell them, don't worry, you don't have to pay me up front. I don't get paid unless and until we recover. And if I agree to take on your case, I have a good feeling there's enough meat on the bone to pursue. If I don't tell you that for one reason or another, I'll at least give you the reasons why I don't think we're going to recover. Because the last thing I ever want to do is take a client on a trip where nobody's going to get anything in the end. I can't pay my staff with that, and the client can't get better with that. As such, we want to be conscious of that fact. If you ever have any questions regarding contingency fee agreements, feel free to give us a call at our number attached there. And my daughters have told me after they watched the first video that I should, number one, look into the camera, and number two, tell clients to like and subscribe our videos. So once again, this is Francis Mackey with Amorgis & Associates. If you have any questions, please feel free to call us. And if we can't get you the answer, we'll certainly look to a place we can. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.